Y or N. No matter how good it is, it can't match your miniature, YN had said showingly. Jinny Kim? First of all, you take the matter from somewhere to somewhere. Jinny spoke angrily. Jinny Kim, by the way, mountains of surprises have fallen on me today. This extinguished star in your eyes has shown its smiling face for the first time and has proved itself to be a living person. When Jinny mischievously said, she started to remove the window glass while suppressing her smile. As soon as the glass was removed, her scarf slipped from her head due to the strong, cold wind. Peeking over the open newspaper, Jungkook's glowing deep brown eyes were tangled in curving golden fringes. Her face was numb by the cold air and Jinny immediately closed the window. She was quickly wrapping her scattered hair and fixing the scarf on her head. Today she felt her face burning with the heat of someone's eyes. First she looked at man lost in the world outside the glasses. She cast a second glance at Jungkook. The next moment, a cold wave ran through her being. YN's breath was taken away by the sharp eagle-like eyes peering over the spread newspaper. On the other hand, he could not take his eyes off YN despite being caught by her for the first time. Shaking at his audacity, YN quickly turned away and stared out the window into the darkness, trying to control her fear and panic. The cold was freezing the blood in the veins. The rain made the night even colder. Those 4 daily passengers were present in the compartment at that time. The train had reached full speed. The atmosphere in the compartment was also chilling. YN, shivering from the cold, had a newly folded brown warm coat in her hands. Hesitantly, she looked at Jinny again. Jinny Kim, why are you thinking so much? Go and give him this coat. He will not refuse to take it. She got up from her seat, taking a deep breath when Jinny gave her courage. Taking his eyes off the newspaper, Jungkook was shocked to see YN, who was standing directly in front of the man in the black warm coat. On the other hand, he who was looking out of the window was shocked to see YN in front of him. YN, don't worry, I came to give you this coat. She spoke with a slight smile at the poor expression of the man. On the other hand, he would sometimes look at YN with great wonder, sometimes at the coat that YN herself had placed on his knees. Why giving this to me? You don't even know me. Then why this? He was being offended and said incoherently, YN, I don't know why. We have been traveling together for many days. This is a gift. I will be happy if you use it. It's a good thing to make someone happy. Double quotes. At YN's kind tone, he began to nod his head in agreement. To satisfy YN, he picked up the coat on his knees in his hands. YN walked back to her seat with a sigh of relief. Jungkook was watching and listening intently. YN's face seemed to light up with joy. Jungkook took another look at him, who looked gratefully at YN and looked out the window again. Looking away from YN's gift clutched to his chest, Jungkook tripped over the umbrella. Jungkook, take that umbrella away from here. It was about to fall on my feet. At Jungkook's harsh tone, he immediately picked up his umbrella and put it on the other side. YN, why was this so delusional on an innocent man? He is really a rude and mean man. YN would have said something else in a low but angry voice, but Jinny had immediately squeezed her hand and motioned for silence. Jinny Kim, this Jungkook is beyond my understanding. We don't need to speak about anyone's case. You keep quiet. He is innocent. He keeps his tongue in his mouth and will deal with it himself. YN, He's a harmless little fellow, not rude like him. YN shot a burning look at Jungkook as she spoke. Jinny Kim, you leave it. Look how many delicious sandwiches I brought from the restaurant. I offer them both. The atmosphere and the mood will be good, Jinny said, opening a box full of sandwiches. Handing a sandwich to YN, she went to Jungkook first. YN wasn't surprised when Jinny sat next to Jungkook as she offered him a sandwich. She also offered sandwich to the black worn-coat man before he could reject. She already placed it in his hands, so he had to eat it. Seeing him eating made YN calm. Descending the busy highway of the city, the evening was still cold and wet. Light rain continued since last night. At that time, she was dealing with customers at the flower shop as well as surrounded by piles of colorful and fragrant flowers. But inside, she was troubled by two eyes focused on her. About an hour ago, while working, her eyes fell on the open coffee shop on the other side of the road. Jungkook was sitting in front of her. She was shocked, but she continued to do her job with self-confidence. But it wasn't that easy. She knew that Jungkook was always there for her. 2 hours had passed like this. Her concern was turning to fear. As time went by, her hairs were thinning, but she still had to deal with customers with a smile and good manners. When she looked up, she found Jungkook staring at her. Working in silence, the dagger she had seen with Jungkook was swirling before YN's eyes. She felt that very soon, the headlines of her murder are also going to appear in the newspapers. She wanted to cry because of her condition. The evening was falling. The shop had closed its working hours, and while leaving with permission from its owner, she accidentally did not look enough towards the shop. She was sure that she was being followed. She didn't take a bus today to reach the platform. She had to travel for 15 minutes. When she reached the platform, Jinny was waiting for her. YN's pale face startled him. YN's heart wanted to burst into tears at her inquiry. But she didn't want to hurt Jinny with the mental agony and fear she herself was suffering from. She told Jinny that she was unwell, and it was true, to convince Jinny. During the trip, she turned around and sat still, leaning out of the window, listening to Jinny and Jungkook's conversation. She was not interested in what they were saying. After realizing the identity of this person by having a polite conversation, she wanted to push him from the moving train, but she was deeply shocked by her lack of courage. She could not even dare to ask the person sitting in front of her for the torture from what she had gone through because of this person. Now every day, they may have to go through this torture until she becomes his victim. To save herself, she could not shut herself up at home because she needed to work. She had to fulfill her responsibilities. Both her mother and brother depended on her, and she faced every danger for them. She had to be ready to do. She kept explaining this to herself. Today she had traveled alone to work without Jinny, but now the journey back was frightening him. Today, like yesterday, Jungkook was nowhere to be seen, but she felt herself constantly trapped in his gaze. As soon as she had finished her work time, she left for the platform. The darkness of the cold winter night had descended. The platform was illuminated with lights and people were also walking. In the compartment, she saw her companion with a black worn-out coat, and then her fear was reduced. Today he was wearing the coat given by YN. But she could not even express any happiness to see it. Sitting alone in her seat, she was looking out through the permanent window, but she knew that Jungkook would arrive before the train left. She didn't even want to see his form. The train was moving at full speed. But her prayers are in vain. The train moved with a terrible shock. YN's heart leaped into her throat as she braced herself from this scowl, for the next station was her town now. She knew what was going to happen. Who knew what had happened? Only a few passengers were visible in the front compartment. Then the ticket checker moved to that side. Jungkook, what's the problem? How long will the train last? Jungkook's voice called out to him. Heard the engine has failed. Wait, it will take some time to fix. The wait was becoming deadly for her when she saw the man in the black worn coat get up from the seat and walk towards the door of the train. YN, where are you going? She huffed as Jungkook stared at her in shock. How long does it take to get train to recover? The last station is not far. I will walk, he said in a simple tone, while YN immediately got up from the seat and walked towards him. YN, I am also walking with you. The next station is mine. Jungkook, it is foolish not to get off the train at this place. It is night time. The forest is near. Any dangerous animal can attack. You are in the train. You are safe in the train. There is danger outside. Jungkook addressed YN directly. YN, what was you don't need to tell me all this. Mind your own business. I know how to protect myself. No one can swallow me as a bitch. YN looked at him with fiery eyes and spoke angrily, and then the arm of the person standing next to her and got off the train. The night was dark and freezing in the wind. The terrible sound of silence spread in every direction. The train was lagging behind, but the bright light on its forehead reached the two, who lay down and advanced on the path between the tall thickets. YN's fears were somewhat eased as she had a familiar companion with her. They both came out quite far. YN, if we keep talking, won't it be good? Double quotes. To her trusted companion, walking with bowed shoulders and bowed head. YN, would you like to tell me something about yourself? This time he was attracted by her insistence. The dimming of the half moon. YN saw a strange glint in his eyes instead of the ever-present desolation. I want to tell you something about myself. Come with me. Speaking in a mysterious voice, he immediately took YN's hand in his grip and hurried across the track towards the dense trees. YN's heart jumped into her throat. YN, where are you taking me? Leave my hand, she said in a trembling voice. But she heard him pulling her up into the thick trees. YN clenched her teeth on his hand to escape from this unexpected grave danger. He groaned as YN jerked away from his weakening grip and ran away. But it wasn't that easy. He was a ferocious hunter. While running away in fear and terror, she could not show lightning speed after a few steps. YN's lifeless being had not enough strength left to rise to her feet again. But she was trying to get up when she was struck in the side with a loud thump, causing her throat to gasp. Waiting for this opportunity, you two friends made me wait for a long time. The angry voice of Psycho Killer fell on her ears. At that time, the sharp dagger was shining in his hand in the dim light of the moon. She was looking with wide eyes. It was only then that an iron arm pressed his neck, and he fell to the ground on one side. A boy lying still on the ground, eyes wide open. Lying still on the ground, holding her breath. YN was watching these two beings intermingle in the semi-darkness with her eyes wide open. She did not show any other way, suppressing the growing agony in her side. She could barely walk a few steps on her feet. Raising her head, she saw the thick tree, and then she fell on the tree, and then she climbed the tree and hid in its dense branches. Breathing like a bellows, she could see the two of them still entwined some distance below. A few moments passed, when they heard the crackling of two fires together. As if the roaring below had stopped, they were now rising in a horrible silence. YN did not know whether these moans were of the murderer or of the person attacking their murderer. All she could see were two giants, one of which was crumpling to the ground, his agonizing, heavy breathing, one of which was falling on the ground, and its painful and heavy screams were deafening. YN's heart was about to burst with fear when she saw the second one coming towards the tree she was hiding in. Keeping both hands firmly on her mouth, she was stopping the screams coming. It was terrifying. YN's heart was about to burst with fear. He was under the hula tree. "Come down, you are not in any danger now." She was hearing a familiar voice, but she could not listen to any voice at the moment. "Jungkook, YN. I'm Jungkook. Are you coming down or should I come up? Some poisonous insect can bite you. I know you don't trust me, but you have seen the consequences of what you trusted." Jungkook's harsh voice came. The voice was drowned in the loud voices of Southern. The headlights of 4 police vehicles lit up the whole environment. YN breathed after who knows how long. As soon as she was sure of safety, loud sirens were heard. The headlights of 4 police vehicles lit up the whole environment. YN took a deep breath after she knew how long, tears welling up in her eyes as she felt safe. Jungkook boldly walks towards the oncoming cars, but soon YN sees him returning towards the tree with a lady police officer. "Lady police officer, try to come down. You will not fail. We are here to help you." How the lady police officer was directing the flashlight towards her. Taking courage, she started trying to get down with the help of strong branches supporting her trembling and injured body. She had come down a little when Jungkook came up the tree, telling her to stop, resting on the top branch. YN's arm was placed on his shoulder, and he took her burden on his shoulders and chest. He came down very carefully. Then it was felt on the earlobe, her trembling breathing. On the other hand, Jungkook had placed her trembling, fragile body in front of him, without separating her from himself. It was only then that YN, resting on his shoulders, felt the touch of his lips on her hair and then on her earlobe. "Jungkook, are you okay?" Asking in a gentle tone, Jungkook took a handkerchief from the lady officer there and started to wipe the blood from YN's lips slowly. YN could only look at him. In Jungkook's eyes, she saw concern and worry for her. Again, she could not look at him. Jungkook extended his hand towards the lady police officer. He saw a car with a lady officer moving towards it. That beastly killer was lying face down on the ground, covered in blood. His hands were handcuffed behind his back. YN's mind was muffled. The lady police officer made her sit in the car. 2 police cars were stationed outside this town at the cafe. Some police officers were standing near the cars drinking coffee. She was sitting around the table in the cafe, while the lady officer was sitting in front of her, taking a sip of hot coffee. The ice on YN's nerves and being began to melt. The cafe was almost empty at that time. "Lady police officer, unknowingly, but because of you, that murderer finally fell into the hands of Jungkook. What a disgrace to this murderer." The police department was under a lot of pressure. We had to take the help of the crime branch, and now we can finally breathe a sigh of relief. We'll be able to. The criminal has reached his end, the lady officer spoke. Lady police officer, don't worry. Relax, there is no danger. YON. Who is Jungkook? She asked. Lady police officer. He is the baddest and top-ranked CBI officer of the crime branch. Jungkook spent days and nights following the killer. However, now the police department will breathe a sigh of relief. So Jungkook's hand in it is huge. He is really very devoted to his work. The lady officer got up from the chair while speaking. Lady police officer, you finish your coffee then. I will take you to your house. The lady officer insisted and went to her colleagues standing next to the cars on the side of the road. YON saw Jungkook there as well and immediately looked away when she saw him looking back at her, taking a sip of coffee and putting the mug back. She turned for a moment to Jungkook as he walked towards her table and then couldn't look away again. Jungkook watched her pale face intently across the table. He was sitting on the side,